The time has come. Your first session of D&D as a Dungeon Master is quickly approaching. Your nerves start to rattle, you wonder if you have everything you need to make the session memorable, and you constantly read the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide. But I'm here to tell you, take a breath, try to relax. You are worrying more than you need to, and are more than likely focusing on things that, while important, at the end of the day, aren't as important as you think they are. Today's video is about the initial do's and don'ts as a first-time DM that will help you be ready for that first session. These are in no particular order, just the initial things to be aware of before you sit behind the screen. My name is Rich, I'm a first-time DM. Welcome to this week's DM Tips. Let's get started. Don't plan to run a level 1 to 20 campaign for your first campaign. I get it. All of us who have decided to sit behind the screen have grand plans of telling an amazing world-traveling, plane-crossing adventure, ending in a Lord of the Rings, Battle of Helm's Deep style final confrontation. However, that kind of campaign very rarely happens, because most campaigns simply don't go from level 1 to 20. And 2, it's hard to plan out if you've never DM'd before. Plus, you simply do not know what your players are going to choose to do over 20 levels, so you don't have an idea of where the story will go once that first die is rolled. Do plan to run a one-shot or a smaller 3 to 6 session campaign for your first time behind the screen. Keeping it to a smaller one-shot or a smaller, quicker campaign gives you some training sessions, which allow you to get your feet under you, so to speak. And if you have all new players, it gives them a chance to learn the mechanics and the rules too. After the one-shot or the smaller campaign, you and your players can discuss continuing to a real campaign with the existing characters, or roll up new ones and start again with a different story. Don't go crazy buying accessories. While handcrafted wooden DM screens, gemstone dice, dwarven forged terrain, templates for all the spell AoEs, or minis for all the creatures your party will face in a campaign do elevate your game. They are not needed, especially not right away. Do have some essential items. In reality, all you need as a DM are the following. Something to use as a DM screen if you wish to hide your rolls or keep other things hidden from the players. A set or two of dice, and hopefully your players bring their own. However, having extras is always a good idea if financially viable. Something to take notes with. I prefer pen and paper because I find it quicker to jot something down on the pad next to me, rather than having to close browser tabs on my iPad to get to the Notes app. If you plan on not doing theater of the mind, you need something to identify the PCs and the enemies on a map. Candy, coins, buttons, really anything can be used, along with some 1x1 grid paper for creating the maps. And depending upon the maps you're using, you will need Sharpies or dry erase markers, depending upon the type. In time, you will end up buying items that improve your experience or help you run the game. But it is best to wait and see if, 1, you like to DM, and 2, if you plan on being a DM long term. D&D can be an expensive hobby. Trust me, I can easily get lost in the D&D pages of Etsy, or creating minis in Hero Forge for every NPC, for every PC. So it's best to spend your money wisely, and only when you know you will be using the items enough to make them worth the cost. Don't over-prepare the world the game will be set in. One of the biggest things that stops someone from being a DM is the belief they need to have all the cities and regions of the world figured out and the entire campaign all planned out before session 1 can happen. That's furthest from the truth. Do have the immediate area the first session will take place fleshed out. If the first session will happen in a cave, set in a forest, near a village, all you need to have ready are any encounters that are expected to happen in the forest and the cave, the name of the village, and some basic shops and NPCs in the village. At a minimum, normally the village should have a tavern or inn, a blacksmith, a general store, maybe a magic shop. You also need the NPCs to run those businesses. Having a mayor and a member of the city guard are also good to have. That's all you need. However, do have the fantasy name generator's website ready to go for when your players go left when you expected them to go right, and enter a shop or run into an NPC that you weren't ready for. There is no need to have a city on the opposite side of the world, all planned out, when the players are in a forest thousands of miles away and may never get there. A video on session preparation will be coming in the future. Don't jump right into session 1. Yes, you want to start the campaign immediately. I understand. However, jumping right into session 1 skips what many consider to be the most important session of the campaign. Of course, I mean session 0. This even applies to one-shots or a several session campaign. Do have a session 0. Session 0 is where you and the players meet, sometimes for the first time. Go over the expectations of the campaign and the world. Discuss any house rules you may have. Talk about lines and veils the players have. A video on session 0s and lines and veils will be coming in the future. Session 0 is also used to generate characters, unless you trust the players to generate the characters out of sight. And just an FYI, this is what I did, but I knew all the players pretty well before we started my campaign, and I knew I could trust them rolling dice to create their stat blocks. If you have enough time, you can do session 0 and session 1 in the same night. Of course, if you're just running a one-shot, your session 0 should be basic, and running the one-shot in the same night should easily happen. I know during the introduction I said these do's and don'ts would not be in any particular order. However, these last two are the ones I would consider the most important to remember before you step behind the screen for the first time. Don't worry about knowing all the rules before your first session. I have simply no idea how many rules there are in D&D. Between all the spells, the classes, the items, plus the mechanics, there are simply way too many for any person to know off the top of their head. So don't think you need to know all the rules. Do remember that you can look up any rule at any time. Thankfully now with Google and D&D Beyond, the rules of this game are at our fingertips. Gone are the days of opening your player's handbook, searching the index or table of contents, looking for a rule that in reality may only be 2 lines long. During the game, if you need clarification on a rule, look it up. But here's the key. Try not to take longer than 1 minute to make a ruling. You don't want to slow the game down, especially during combat. If you can't find the rule or decision is taking too long to make, do one of the following. Make a ruling with your best understanding of the rule, but let the players know that you will look up the rule after the game to be sure it's handled correctly going forward, and you will let them know what you found out. Or make a ruling, but let the players know that this is a one-time use of how this ruling is applied, either because it falls under the rule of cool, which more in the rule of cool in a future video, or it simply makes sense in this singular moment for the rule to be applied in the way it was. You can also let your players assist with looking up rules, especially for their own spells and items. The key is not to let the game stall for a rule. And just remember that you will make mistakes on the rules. Everyone does. The key is to learn from them and try not to let them happen again. Our final don't is don't be stubborn with your story. Yes, you are the DM and you are telling the story the players are a part of. You may even have created an amazing tale that you want the players to experience. Here's something you don't want to do. Railroad your players just so your story happens. As I have said many times in this video, expect a video about railroading in the future. Just know that railroading is arguably the worst thing a DM can do to their players. Do remember the DM is the narrator of the player's story. While you may have created the world and the story, the players and their choices are what determines what happens in that story, along with the dice, of course. You are there to weave the pieces of the story together, create options the players may take, adjudicate dice rolls and rules, but most importantly, to play a wonderful game with your friends. And as always, to see what the dice gods have in mind. Welcome to being a DM. It'll be tough at times, but it will also be easy at times. Just don't give up after one session. We all start somewhere and we learn as we go. The more time you spend creating encounters, developing NPCs and plot hooks, and sitting behind the screen, the better a DM you will become. So good luck with your first session. Please leave comments about your first session as a DM below. Keep those constructive criticism coming regarding these videos, as well as any topics for videos you would like to see in the future. I want to give a special shout out to Kay Marie. She is the talented artist that did all the logos you see here on my channel, as well as my merch store. You will find links to her work in the description, along with links to my merch store, as well as a link to my Facebook page. So please go there, give me a follow. As always, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and ring that bell to be notified when a new video drops. Thanks for listening. Now let's roll some dice.